The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 214.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library, the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book that will enable you to grow personally and professionally. Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the EL. Today we have a returning guest, Stephen Key, who was back in episode 78 covering his book, One Simple Idea. And he's back here in episode 214 speaking about sell your ideas with or without a patent. And I'm hoping for all of those of you out there that have huge ideas, and sometimes you have this fear of moving forward with them or a fear of sharing them with other people because it can be stolen or something like that. This is a phenomenal person to listen to because his life, his passion is focused on helping people with this exact same situation, with this same challenge. So I think you're going to get a ton out of this interview with Stephen. And out of the 200 plus episodes we've had, he's really the only person that's come on and talked about this specific portion of entrepreneurship. So without further ado, let's bring Stephen on. Welcome back, Stephen, and thank you for joining us once again on the Entrepreneur's Library.
Thank you very much, Wade. It's a pleasure to be here.
We take just a moment for those of the audience that haven't listened to episode 78, where you cover one simple idea. Will you again take a moment to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you personally.
Wonderful. Thank you. My name is, of course, Stephen Key. I've been bringing my simple ideas to market and collecting royalties for each and every one that is sold. So I'm very excited to be here, and I'm going to hopefully, in fact, not even hopefully, I'm going to tell everybody how to save money, but how to protect those ideas when you bring them to market.
That's awesome. You know, Stephen, I've referenced your other book because I sometimes sit down with friends, and I have a lot of entrepreneurial type friends, and some that are entrepreneurs that want to be entrepreneurs, and some of them sometimes have these massive ideas, and they don't know where to start. And sometimes I'll reference your book like, hey, have you thought about being the person who has the idea and maybe getting someone else to execute this idea? And so I think there's huge value. I think every time someone has a larger idea that they think needs funding or something like that, sometimes it can be scary and it can cause us not to do anything at all when there's, other options. So I can't wait to jump in. And so thanks again for sharing that. And now let's do just that. Let's jump right into your book, Sell Your Ideas with or Without a Patent, which was just made available, and I forgot to check with you, but was it March 3rd, 2015?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. It's out, and I think it's going to be a very, very important book for anyone that has an idea, because you're right. They don't know what to do, and the first thing they think they have to do is, I have to go out and file for a patent, which can be extremely time-consuming, but also very expensive, especially if we're on a tight budget.
Excellent. So, Stephen, we'll jump into the interview portion, or I guess the questions. And our whole goal here today is to make sure that the listener, the future reader, gets a great idea of what your book's all about. Many of them have found your book on Amazon, they found it on Google or social media, and they've come back to listen to see if this is their next great read. So the first question would be, what was the inspiration behind writing this book?
Wade, a few years ago, I was in federal court and was suing a small toy company, Legos. And it took 3 years. And through that whole process, I realized that we never really own anything, even if we have patents. But we have this fear that we have to have patents to go forward with our ideas. And that's just not true. So this book was written from a business perspective, not from a legal perspective, but from a business perspective. How can we take our ideas and bring them to market and use the tools that the USPTO, that's the United States Patent and Trademark Office, these simple tools such as patents, trademarks, copyrights, how can we use them to our advantage and not let the system use us because it's very expensive?
So what would you say? I love this question because, every book that comes out nowadays is really a needle in a haystack. And so I love being able to help them differentiate themselves. So what's a book, or what makes your book different from others regarding the same or similar topic?
I don't think this book a book like this has never been written anywhere, ever, because it's from the business perspective. It's not from the legal perspective. It's what to do. It gives you the knowledge to determine if you have a small idea, a big idea, and how can I take this idea forward with confidence and take the fear away to license that idea to companies. Because what I've learned through all of this, that you never really own an idea. It's perceived ownership, which is important. And I talk about how you can do that for $65 with a provisional patent application that you can file yourself, that actually has value, that stops other people from maybe trying to jump in and working around your idea. See, it's a very different perspective on that. I've been teaching my students for over 13 years, and even with my own products that I've licensed, very, very rarely did I ever need a patent, but I needed perceived ownership. So how do you do that? What tools do you need to have that perceived ownership, to go forward with confidence, to license those ideas, knowing that a company is going to take it and not work around your idea?
Yeah, that's huge. And again, I feel like you hit the nail on the head that really fear, I think, stops. So I don't know what percentage, but the majority of individuals in this specific spot, because a lot of times it is. Sometimes it's a big idea that you know you need someone else's help with, but you won't tell anyone else about it because you think someone else is gonna steal it from under you.
Well, this fear is real. Okay, and I don't want people to be fearful. I want them to be careful and understand the process, what's really happening here. The old thought process was that I was going to file a patent because of that fear. I was going to build a prototype, and then after spending all this money and time, then I was going to show a company my idea. I like to look at it a little differently. To get interest from a company first, then establish this perceived ownership with a provisional patent application. That way you can go forward and that potential licensee, basically that company that's going to take your idea, that will see this perceived ownership. And I write in the book how to negotiate that so you can absolutely cut a licensing deal, even if you have a patent pending, even if you have no intellectual property whatsoever. I talk about it in the book. And of course, if you have a patent, you're going to get even a higher royalty. So I cover it all within this book.
And Stephen, how do you, I guess, suggest the reader engage with this book? Is this one that they can jump in and jump out based on the information they need at that moment? Or did you really write it to be read from front to back?
No, actually it's written, that's a wonderful question. Thank you. It's written in such a way that if you have a simple idea, a small idea, you can you can just get into it few chapters and you're ready to start now. And then I go in from a different perspective. If you have a big idea, what do you need to do? Because they're very different. I've had small ideas that I've licensed without any intellectual property or maybe a PPA with that perceived ownership. But I've also had big ideas where I had to build a wall of patents. So I talk about how to identify, to find that right patent attorney, to how to work with the USPTO, how to work with patent examiners, because it is a relationship that your patent attorney must have, but also supplying your patent attorney, if you have a big idea, with the right information. So when they do go forward, your patent has value. That's why no one has written a book like this from a business perspective, because we're all we're in this group where, we have this fear. So we're reading books about how to protect ideas, but not how to use this system to protect ourselves.
That's huge. So Stephen, we're to my favorite part of the entire interview, and that's where I really want to, hand over the mic to you and give you the next 5 to 8 minutes to really give the listener, the future reader, a great idea of what your book's all about. So you do that for us?
Absolutely. Thank you. First of all, I know that everyone that's listening, you have an idea, but what do you do? And you are fearful that maybe someone will work around it. You don't know who to show, you don't know where to start. But I'm telling you here that if you dig into this book, you're going to realize that the tools that are provided, such as patents and trademarks and copyrights, you're going to understand how to use those tools. And they're very, very inexpensive. But you're going to learn how to write write this information down in such a way that it has value and that perceived ownership. So you can get started today. It's very, very simple to do, but it's from the business perspective. It's written in such a way that it gives you ownership. And so that's what's very, very important in this book. And then I said before that the next part of this book, and because I know there's a lot of people out there that have big dreams, big ideas, but you have to take a different approach. So I tell this story about one of my technologies. In fact, what you're going to find throughout this book, it's a very technical book, but it's very easy to read and understand. I took a topic that was complicated, and I brought it down to a level that anybody can understand it and use these tools that are provided for us. So this book strips away the fear. It shows you how to take a small idea for $65 and have that perceived ownership. It talks about how to structure a licensing agreement, even if you don't have any ownership. But then again, it takes it to a whole nother level that if you have a big idea, how to work with your patent attorney, how you can be the expert, how you can gather that information. So if you have to work with a patent attorney, to find the right patent attorney, how to identify the right one, how to work with them, how to give them the tools. So if they're going to go forward with a patent application, it truly has value. And that's very, very different from any book you will ever read. I guarantee it. Because at the end of the day, we have limited time. We have limited resources. So we have to be smart with our money. And it's time for us to take advantage of our size, to be quick, to be small, to be smart, and take these tools and have these tools that the USPTO, that's the United States Patent and Trademark Office, provide anyone in the world to play the largest game in the world. But you have to understand how to leverage those tools. And that's why this book is very different.
So, Stephen, now we're asking you you just broke it down beautifully, and now we're asking you to take it a step further. And that's if the reader can only take away one concept, one principle, one action item out of your entire book, what would you personally want that to be?
You can do this, and you can do this with the confidence. You can go out there. I don't care if you've got limited resources. I don't care if you've never done this before. If you have an idea, you can do this moving forward with confidence. You can get your ideas, license those to companies, and feel confident that you're in control.
So this next question might be a little bit different because we're asking you not so much from a quote from your book, but one that's something that you wrote, something that you think will resonate with your audience. And the book's actually been out for a little bit now, so maybe it's something that you have already identified has resonated with them. But something that you wrote that you think will resonate, and also you take a minute to explain what that quote means.
You know, Wade, I don't really have one quote from the book. I believe that I guess if I had to pick one, it would be that this notion of perceived ownership, that we don't own anything. And that is a gray area that people have a hard time with. But once you understand that gray area, you're going to realize that you can work within that gray area. So there's no such thing as ownership. It's only perceived ownership.
Perfect. And for people to be able to go back and reflect more on that, because I think the beautiful thing about quotes is they kind of live and breathe, and you can go back and look and reflect on them. We'll put that at the show notes at the elpodcast.com. And Stephen, this last question I have is actually not, it won't be about your book, but it's about a recommendation. And we're not asking for any, we're asking for the book recommendation. So if there was only one book you could suggest for the person listening, based on the way that it impacted your life, created a huge paradigm or lifestyle shift for you, what book would you recommend?
The one that's had a big impact that I just read recently is from Ryan Holiday, and it's called The Obstacle is the Way. And it's a book that I've been thinking about and using that information, I would say almost daily. And it talks about obstacles that we all have each and every day, and looking at them differently, and actually looking at obstacles as finding opportunities. In fact, turning those obstacles into opportunities. So you realize they're not bad things. They're actually good things. That gives you a chance to do things different, move your projects forward, and basically live your life differently. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. I absolutely love it.
Excellent. And I think he has a new one out. I think he popped out a couple books in similar time periods. So it was pretty fantastic.
Well, he writes them pretty quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Stephen, before we depart, I want to give you an opportunity to get these folks some information or on how to gather more information on you. So can you recommend the best way for listeners to get more information on you and your book?
Well, it's very simple. My website is called Invent Right. You don't want to invent wrong, so it's inventright.com. We also have on our website a YouTube channel. It's called Invent Right TV, where we go through this whole process once a week for 10 minutes. It has all the information. You'll absolutely love it. I believe that it's important to empower people with good information, so we supply that. You can also find me on Inc.com and Entrepreneur.com, where I write a weekly column for both those publications online, and you can find this new book, of course, on Amazon. You can also get a signed copy if you go to my website as well.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you for that offer. Stephen, thank you so much for coming on once again and sharing one of your books with us.
Wade, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thanks again for listening in today. If you'd like more information on Stephen or his book, Sell Your Ideas with or Without a Patent, check out the show notes at the elpodcast.com. And as always, if you want an opportunity to win this book, become a VIP. It's the button in the upper right-hand corner at the elpodcast.com.
Looking for your next book idea? Head over to the elpodcast.com, where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free. That's the elpodcast.com. Till the next time, keep it on the EL.